All right, so we're going to be looking at converting Ext plugins. So you'll be familiar with Ext plugins back in the 6.0, 6.1, 6.2 days. Ext plugins were the most powerful customization tool we had. This allowed us to quite literally customize anything that we wanted in Liferay, but that was of course without some consequences. With great power comes great responsibility. This was one of our tools that we had. Coming into 7.0 and 7.1, technically speaking, Ext plugins are deprecated. Let's first talk about the drawbacks and some of the things that we had to deal with. Right, because Ext plugins were so powerful, integrating them within Liferay increased a lot of our complexity. Ext plugins allowed us to be able to, again, customize pretty much anything. So if we were to customize a core API, for example, we would literally take that core API, rip it out, customize it, and then add our Ext plugin into its place, right? And so because of that, you would basically integrate the Ext plugin in the place of, some core functionality. As the core functionality upgraded and updated, you would have to integrate that change into the Ext plugin, since that's the new part. So that was first. The things that you changed with an Ext plugin were in turn complicated because you changed it. The second part is Ext plugins were not hot deployable. So you had to restart Liferay in order for an Ext plugin to take effect. That's not very fun when it takes 15-20 minutes to start up your Liferay instance. So there was a couple of situations where Ext plugins were still sort of fair game. A lot of what we did with the introduction of OSGI rendered the Ext plugin no longer of use. So that was a kind of a great thing that we did. But there were still some situations that called for an Ext plugin. The big ones that we're going to be highlighting down here towards the bottom is going to be the modification and the adding of the web XML files within Liferay. Right, a couple of other use cases, but for the most part, outside of what we see here, we're not really going to be using an Ext plugin. All right, so let's take a look and see an example of how an Ext plugin worked back in 6.2. So in 6.2, when we took a look at the user's My Account section, for example, a lot of what we saw here was controlled by portal properties. Here in portal properties, there is a specific property that we can set or that was used to determine what was in a user's specific sections in their My Account. So details, organizations, and so on. As you progress through different parts of the user sections, you'll see different properties, and it basically highlights all of the different pages or sections a part of the main section. So subsections a part of the main section, right? And so again, more of what we saw in the originals. So if we wanted to modify what was over there, we could very easily add new sections. That was very simple. You just added the section in Portal Ext, and then Liferay would add the rest. But if we wanted to remove sections, that's where things got a little bit more complicated. So in 6.2, the way that we had to do this was writing an Ext plugin that overwrote that specific property. In 7.1 and in 7.0, that property doesn't even exist. So the property that we used in 6.2 no longer exists over in 7.1. So because of that, we have to find an alternative to achieving the same functionality. So this is where documentation comes to the rescue. We have documentation here highlighting how to find extension points and what extension points are available. And so we have to do a little bit of digging to see how does Liferay allow for us to modify some of the things that we used to modify using hooks and Ext plugins, more specifically Ext plugins. So the documentation is there to help us with that, but we have a couple of other ways, a couple of the methods we have to take. We can look through the modules or the bundles to find the specific functionality we're looking for. And as we do, we're going to be looking for components within those modules that help us out. So we're going to walk through a very simple exercise here where we're going to be removing specific sections from the user's My Account section. So when we go into the user and take a look at the different pages that they have, we're going to take out some of them. And we'll see how to do that without the use of an Ext plugin. The next example will show how we do need an Ext plugin to configure the web.xml of Liferay. So we'll create an Ext plugin, do a little bit of cleanup, and then modify the web.xml. So all of that to say is Ext plugins, as I'm talking to you now, still technically exist, but their use has been limited a lot because we've re-implemented a lot of things within Liferay. So before even thinking about using an Ext plugin here in Liferay 7.1, you're going to want to identify what sort of functionality are you trying to achieve, right? How is that being implemented, and how do we modify some of our modules or components in order to achieve the same functionality as what we had with an Ext plugin. There are some very, very rare situations that we need an Ext plugin, so they are still here as I talk to you, but for the most part, we want to stray away from them. So let's go ahead and take a look at our example.